Welcome back to the Revenge Chronicles, the place where real stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and shocking revenge come to life. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you don't want to miss what happens next in today's story. Now, listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is something I never imagined could happen in my own family. I'll never forget the day they told me to leave. It wasn't just my husband's voice that shattered me. It was the silence that followed, the silence of people I once called family. The same people who had sat at my table, eaten the food I cooked, and called me daughter. I stood there, my hands trembling, clutching the keys that no longer meant anything, realizing that somehow I was being kicked out of my own home. Tell me honestly, what would you do if the people you trusted the most turned your own walls against you? Would you walk away quietly, or would you take everything back? My name is Emily, and for most of my life, I believed that love and family could survive anything. I was married to a man named Mark for 12 years. We had a small but beautiful house, one I helped pay for from my own savings. When we first bought it, he used to tell me, "This house will always be our safe place." I believed him. I worked side by side with him to build that life, late nights, skipped luxuries, and endless patience with his family. Especially his mother, who was, let's just say, complicated. From the beginning, she never truly accepted me. I was too modern, too opinionated, too independent for her taste. She'd make small comments like, "A good wife doesn't talk back," or "A home is built by silence, not by pride." I used to swallow those words because I thought peace mattered more. But now I realize, peace built on silence isn't peace at all, it's slow suffocation. Things changed when Mark's father passed away. Suddenly, his mother and younger brother, Ethan, moved in with us temporarily. At first, I welcomed them. It was the right thing to do and I wanted to help. But that temporary stay turned permanent very quickly. My kitchen became her kitchen, my routines became hers, and Mark, he began to change. He used to talk to me about everything. Our plans, our dreams, our finances, but now, everything started running through her. I would hear whispers when I entered the room, sudden silence when I sat down. I brushed it off, convincing myself I was imagining things. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then came the first betrayal. I found out that Mark had secretly transferred our house papers into joint ownership with his mother, without even telling me. I only found out when a property tax notice arrived addressed to Mark and Mrs. Linda Thompson. My name was nowhere. I confronted him that night, tears burning in my eyes, and he looked at me like I was the problem. "Why are you making a scene?" he said. "She's my mother, and this is our family home." I reminded him, "I paid for half of this house. You promised it would always be ours." He rolled his eyes and said, "It's just a formality. Stop overreacting." But I knew this was more than a formality. This was the beginning of the end. Months passed and my marriage began to crumble. Every fight ended with his mother stepping in, always taking his side, always blaming me. "You're too emotional," she'd say. "A wife's place is behind her husband, not beside him." And Mark, he'd stay silent. Silence was his weapon. It killed me more than any words could. One evening, after a particularly bitter argument about money, I overheard them talking. His mother whispered, "Get rid of her. This house should stay in the family. She doesn't belong here." And Mark didn't protest. The next morning, everything changed. I came home from work to find my clothes packed in boxes. My jewelry, my personal items, gone. My nameplate at the door removed. Mark stood there with his mother and brother, their faces cold and emotionless. "You need to leave, Emily," he said. "We've decided it's best for everyone." I laughed in disbelief. "We've decided? Who's we?" His mother stepped forward and said, "This is our house and you have no place here anymore." That's when it hit me. They had planned this for months. I begged Mark to look me in the eyes and tell me this was really what he wanted, but he wouldn't. He just said, "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." I walked out that night with nothing but a small suitcase and my dignity hanging by a thread. I moved in with my friend Nora, who insisted I stay with her. She was furious when I told her what happened. "You can't let them get away with this," she said. But I was broken, emotionally and financially. My whole identity had been wrapped around that home, that family, that marriage. I couldn't even think straight. Days turned into weeks, and I tried to move on, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, their betrayal, their cruelty. Then one day, something inside me snapped. Nora was the one who planted the idea. "Didn't you say your name was on the house papers before Mark changed it?" she asked. "You might still have legal grounds to fight back." It was a small spark of hope, and I clung to it. I started digging. I found old documents, receipts, bank transfers, all proving that half the payment for that house had come from my account. I took everything to a lawyer, and his words were like oxygen. "You have a strong case, Emily." Very strong. For the first time in months, I felt power returning to me. But I didn't want to just take back what was mine. I wanted them to feel what I felt. I wanted them to understand what it's like to lose everything you thought you controlled. So I played smart. I didn't go to them screaming or crying. I filed a legal claim quietly, knowing they'd be caught off guard. And just as I expected, a few weeks later, Mark received the notice. I heard through a mutual friend that his mother nearly fainted when she found out. They thought I was too weak to fight back. They underestimated the power of a woman who has nothing left to lose. So that's the situation I was in, betrayed, broken, but burning with determination. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause for a second and tell me honestly. If you were in my shoes, would you have walked away, or would you have taken everything back like I did? Comment below. I really want to know what you would have done. Anyway, the court process dragged on for months. Mark tried everything to delay it. He lied, twisted stories, and even tried to portray me as unstable. But the evidence spoke louder than his words. The judge saw the truth. Every document, every payment receipt, every detail proved that I had invested half the money. And since there was no legal proof that I ever transferred my share, it meant my ownership still stood. When the verdict came, I felt like I could finally breathe. The judge ruled that the house must be sold and the proceeds divided equally, or if one party wanted to keep it, they had to compensate the other in full. Mark's face when he heard that. I'll never forget it. His mother screamed that day in court, calling me ungrateful, calling me a snake. I stayed silent, calm, collected. For once, I was the one with the power. And the sweetest part? I used the compensation money not to start over somewhere small, but to buy the house back from them entirely. When I signed those papers, the ownership returned solely to me. The same house they kicked me out of was now mine and mine alone. But I didn't move back right away. No. I let them stay for a week after the final notice went out. I wanted them to feel that slow, creeping fear of losing everything. Then, one afternoon, I showed up with the new ownership documents and politely said, "You have 24 hours to vacate my property." Mark tried to argue, but the confidence in my voice silenced him. His mother started crying, saying, "Where will we go?" And I said, "You should have thought about that when you threw me out." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't curse. I just watched as they packed their things, one by one, walking down the same steps they once made me leave from. It was poetic justice. When they finally left, I walked inside. The air still smelled like their perfume, their food, their presence, but it didn't hurt anymore. I opened every window, every curtain, letting the light flood in. That house felt alive again. Not because of revenge, but because I reclaimed the part of myself they tried to erase. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt free. Mark tried to reach out later, asking if we could talk. He said he made mistakes, that his mother manipulated him. I didn't even respond. You see, sometimes closure isn't about getting answers, it's about accepting that you don't need them anymore. I sold the house a few months later, took the money, and started a new life. I opened a small interior design studio, something I'd always dreamed of but never had the courage to pursue. And you know what? I've never been happier. Looking back, I don't regret anything. Losing that house, that marriage, it all broke me down to rebuild me into someone stronger, someone wiser. The woman who left that night with nothing but a suitcase would have never believed that she'd one day own not just her life but her power. So if you're listening to this and you've ever been betrayed, lied to, or pushed aside, remember this. Sometimes the best revenge isn't anger or destruction. It's rising so high that the people who tried to bury you have to look up to see you. Like this video if you were on my side, and subscribe for more real stories like this one. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if your own family kicked you out of your house? Would you forgive them or take everything back like I did? I'll see you all in the next story.